So, hey guys, my name is Zoya Yaseka, and I am here with the amazing King Charles, I like to call him, is
formerly Prince Charles. Now it's King Charles.
Formerly Prince Charles, is one of my mentors in the modeling space. He was one of the first people who I feel like saw me and really captured my essence. So I am forever grateful to him for playing that role in my life. Introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah, so
in the most epic way possible.
The most epic way. Yeah. I am a father first and foremost. I'm a black man. I am an artist, creator, mentor, possibly future politician. No, maybe not. I do a lot of things, from filmmaking to photography, obviously, to graphic design, production, music-wise, holistic branding, altogether. Yes. Anything that involves making someone's best or a business's best version of themselves be the customer-facing side, I kind of help with that stuff. So
yeah, he is, in short, a Renaissance man. It's pretty inspiring to be in his midst every time. It's inspiring, it's motivating, it's empowering. Highly recommend working with this savant.
I'm all right. I'm okay. The life's changing.
So today we're talking a lot about fear, which was the intention that I did set for this week. And I thought it was really cool because I've just recently put myself through the entire Prescription for Life process, and I was telling you how that process kind of speaks to the light of the journey, figuring out how you want to become, receive, and give love in the world. Yeah. And I've been thinking about how, like I said, that's the light in the process. But like we were talking about, there's always a double-edged sword. It's always, if there's light, there has to be darkness.
Yeah, you can't have one without the other.
Yeah. So what is your definition of love first? And then what is your definition of fear?
Well, I think love, my definition of love is, it's kind of an amalgamation of a lot of things. So bear with me while I unpack that. But okay, love is, first and foremost, unconditional. I think that's kind of one of the first key words or bullet points that come to mind when I think of love. No matter what situation you're in, no matter where you are in life, no matter what that thing is or where you are, you still feel that love for that thing, that person, that craft, that alkaline water, whatever it is. So I think because love is it's used so frivolously. Yeah. I think that's a good generalization of that for me.
Yes.
What it means to me. Fear is, to me, a manifestation of several things.
Okay.
And I try to be. I'm a Libra.
Okay.
So I tend to always overanalyze things sometimes, like weigh it out, right? My Libras, I see you out there. But yeah, so fear it's multidimensional. Fear can be something based off of a blind expectation based off of no experience. Or fear can be based off of an expectation rooted directly from an experience you had. So that's why I say, but ultimately fear is stifling. And fear can be your best friend, and it can save your life, or it can prevent you from living your best life. So that's why I say fear is so, it kind of wears multiple hats, or it can mean different things to different people based off the scenario. Yeah. But ultimately, within this context, let's look at fear as something that can stop you from being your best self. Yeah. If you let it. Yes. So, yeah.
Okay, so in the Prescription for Life programming, we teach that love is a practice. It's a way of life. It's a way of being. And you practice this by practicing understanding, mindfulness and patience. And so based off that, when I'm coaching and a fear arises in one of my kids, it's usually from a lack of understanding of what they're doing. Without the understanding, they cannot practice mindfulness and they will not be patient with themselves. So because I view you as such an amazing mentor, how have you been able to help others that you've impacted work through these fears?
Yeah, I think for one, it's important to be able to, for people who are fearful of something, to see the living embodiment of something or someone that overcame that fear. So for me, for example, I've mentored and coached people who wanted to start a career in the arts, for example.
Yes.
But they didn't have anyone who was a working example or living example, someone doing it within their direct community or kind of fit into the lane they wanted to go. So I think that was the first, breakthrough for me when it came to working with people who were fearful of something. Even through my travels and doing things that were kind of extreme, that revolved around jumping out of airplanes and rappelling from towers and stuff. My history is a bit sordid. But let's just say I had an adventurous life. Yeah. And everything that I've done that I felt fear from, it took someone who had already done it to show, hey man, I'm still here. Wow. I'm still standing. I made it through and you can too. Wow. And then the prideful side of me would kind of think, well, I'm not going to be outdone by that person. If they can do it, I can do it too. Yes. And I think that once people see that someone else who looks just like them has similar background and might have a similar ideology about life and experiences, and they see them doing or someone achieving certain things that they know they want to. Yeah. I think that, I don't want to say lowers the barrier, but it levels the playing field when it comes to thought. Yes. You know, so absolutely. It's attainable. Yes. So seeing someone you can reach out to and touch. Yes. And seeing them doing something that you want to do is one of the best things to affirm someone. I agree with this. It definitely is the first step in like creating a foundation of efficacy. Absolutely. So what would you say your biggest fear is or was, and how have you been able to work through that? Well, I would say one of my biggest fears, which I try to not give too much energy to. Okay. So I guess that's a good thing. Yeah. But we still have it. So one of my biggest fears is not leaving a legacy. I think it's important to do something that or create something, be it a business or a family tradition, anything that can be passed on. Yeah, to a generation. Absolutely. Yeah. So I think one of my biggest fears, I guess existentially, is not leaving a legacy, or being forgotten, or having work, or an entire body of work just disappear for some reason. Right. Which could destroy that legacy based off of that particular context. But yeah, that's my one thing. Yeah, I think I love that. My biggest fear is probably regret. My biggest fear is absolutely regret, and on the other side of that is failing. But I would rather fail than say I didn't try. Yeah. I can definitely relate to that. You know, we kind of chat about that earlier about, you know, you never know unless you try. Yes. But then if you try and fail, it might not be the most comfortable situation. Right. But you learned. You learn, right. And it doesn't mean that you can't possibly do that thing again. Exactly. Because now you have things to learn from. You have teaching moments where you know what not to do moving forward. And I think that's kind of what led to me being in the arts for so long, going on 15 years as a full-time working artist. And trust me, it's not easy. Right. You know, and you fail multiple times. And then you have to constantly adapt and grow, but you can't let fear just say, you know what, I quit. Right. I never was to the point where I would allow fear to stop me from continuing to create and possibly, you know, build a future. Yeah. And all of the physical things. Yes. The worldly things that we require. Yeah. We require money. You know, we require transportation. Right. And you know, retirement. we're not getting younger. So
Yeah.
not a lot of living artists can say that they've been able to make that, and I'm still working towards that. But I could have just said, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna go work in this cubicle.
Right. Absolutely.
And then regret
Yeah.
that I didn't make my art. So
Okay, so my next question for you is, how have you allowed that fear to push you and help you evolve? Because even we've known each other 5 years,
Yeah.
probably 5 years total now. And during that time, I've seen you grow from, like artist, videographer to literally, I feel like you're building an empire, like real estate on several boards, like, helping develop schools and artists, branding people. Like, how have you allowed that fear to help with this?
Well, I would say one of some of the most basic instincts that revolve around survival is to diversify.
Okay.
So my fear of not having resources available to at a minimum meet my basic living needs and my family, I think it's important. So if the fear of not being able to do that will make you get your hustle game up.
Yeah.
And I hate to diminish artists' work and whatever it is your craft is as just a hustle. We know what we're saying when we say hustle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, it is a lifestyle. It's knowing that you have to put in them 80 hours versus a 40 or 50 hour work week.
Right.
It's knowing that if you have a talent in something, figuring out a way to monetize it. It's about knowing that if you know someone who can help you to maybe buy them lunch one day, put your coins together and just sit down with that person who could potentially mentor you or point you in the right direction to get you where you need to go.
Yeah.
So I think the fear of not having those resources available is a part of the driving factor for me. But once again, the fear of not having a legacy to leave behind.
Yeah.
I've always dreamed of having something to pass on to my daughter, be it a business name or an LLC or some type of business entity to where she will be able to make money, but from that, if she chooses to do so.
Yeah.
And if not, then somebody else is more than welcome to do that.
Yeah.
So the fear of those things has definitely driven me.
Dope. Okay. So most of what we do with Prescription for Life is figuring out how we can lead life as our highest self. How has overcoming that fear factor allowed you to do that?
That's a good question. I think it's the fear of not potentially living to our or my fullest potential. It's about constantly evolving for me. You can't be stagnant in today's ever. I don't believe it's good to be stagnant, but sometimes we become complacent. And everyone has different goals and dreams, but
Absolutely.
I think that in order to constantly elevate whatever it is you're doing, from your philosophy to your ability to light a scene as an artist, or your ability to get that color shading right as an acrylic painter, for example, you have to constantly be learning. And if you're not open to learning new things, new skills, or new ways of thought, you're not going to overcome or get beyond a certain level.
Okay.
You have to constantly be learning.
Okay.
So I'm a constant student.
Love that.
And technology allows us to have everything. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no reason why you can't. If you want to learn French, well, download the app and do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If you want to learn how to do fashion photography, go on YouTube. There's 1,000,001 tutorials on how to light for fashion.
Okay.
So there's no excuse.
Yeah.
So if you don't know something, go find out.
Yeah.
So when I mentor people, that's one of the things, especially within photography, for example, whenever people ask me to just mentor them and I don't know them, it's like, there's just a process with that.
Yes.
And one of the processes is I need to know where you are as far as your ability and your willingness to learn on your own versus expecting me to give it to you.
Right.
So I have homework. And it's like, hey, who's your favorite artist? And if you don't have any, we'll come back in a few months. Or whenever you have a list for me, and tell me why these are your favorite artists. I can't be your favorite artist, right?
Why?
I'm still alive for one.
Okay.
And number Number two, I mean, I'm but a small speck of sand in a vast world and universe of amazing artists, many of which who I looked for guidance visually, even though they didn't know I existed. So I expect someone who wants to perform at a high level to look at the highest level of people who are performing in their craft.
I love that.
So that's just one small aspect of it, but yeah.
Okay. Another thing that we go over is there are 3 words of embodiment that we choose for the superhero check-in.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be the love you became as a result of your experience, the love you felt like you needed in order to get to a higher version of that love, and then what the word of embodiment would be for the highest version of your love. Okay. So which word of embodiment, the love you became, the love you needed, or the love that you want to be, would you say encourages you to overcome that fear on a consistent basis?
Definitely the love I would want to be, which is, it's kind of 2 words because it's all encompassing. And I say that those 2 words are important to me because
all encompassing is the love that you want to become.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think when you operate at a high level, not saying I do, but when you strive to, and you strive to be all encompassing, you want to be, and I'm not saying this is always a great thing. If it can be abused, right? But for me, this is assuming that you already understand. Okay, some people might not be ready for that, or some people will take advantage of that. Let's just look at the ideal situation. All encompassing is just that. You're amazing at your craft, and you've done the work. You're amazing as a family person, and you've been able to facilitate love and understanding in your household. Same thing for your community. People respect you, and you have a circle of people who are respected, and you do the type of work that inspires. That to me is life goals, period.
Wow.
And it might take me another 30 years to get to that point, but that is it for me. All encompassing, good person, grounded, not perfect.
Right.
No, I never said perfect, but all encompassing, all of those things. That is the true definition of like higher level love for me.
I loved
Long
that.
term.
I loved that. There's one more question I had for you. I'm gonna see if I can find it really quick. I mean, from what we've talked about so far, though, what's your like takeaway from the superhero check-in? What did you think about it when we first talked about it, and like how do you feel about it now?
Well, the way I look at it, I think it's important for people. Number one, just the context of superhero, the language used is important. It's important for people to acknowledge that they are superheroes in their own right.
Yes.
And most superheroes, if you look at the common narratives of superheroes, they didn't know they had the power.
Right.
Or they knew they had it, but they didn't quite know how to use it.
Right.
So that kind of that describes all of us.
Yeah.
We all have a gift and a power that can be used for good that we don't know we have yet, you know.
So how would you use something like that as a mentor?
I think it can be a good, relatable thing for people who grew up watching the Avengers. Like literally, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think from a relatability standpoint, it makes sense. The language is definitely relatable.
Yeah.
But when you unpack all of those things, and I don't want to say deconstruct, but you unpack them. Okay, perfect case in point. I think, remember when Black Panther came out, for example, and how millions of Black and brown people never saw a superhero actually get their own movie at that budget and the spectacle of it all. I think that's where I connect the dots with the language of being a superhero. So that was what struck me. It was like, we all have that superhero in us. What are you going to do to ignite that fire to allow you to actually become that superhero? Or let it manifest, because it's probably already in you.
I love that. Okay, so what would you say to someone looking to, like, you've lit that fire? How do they then sustain it?
I think it goes back to what I said earlier. You know, things evolve, and whatever it is you're doing, you want to be like really good at. in 5 years, you probably won't be if you don't continue to evolve with whatever what that thing is. So, yeah, you have to always be learning.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. So, is there anything that you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, I would definitely say, honestly, all this is great, but if you're not taking care of your physical and your mental, nothing else is really going to work. Right. I mean, if you have to be in good shape mentally, you have to have your clear mind, and sometimes it takes some work to do that. Yeah. To get to that point where you can manifest all that you are and can become. But if you're clouded by negativity or whatever it is that is holding you back mentally, and if you know that you probably can, take a 20-minute walk for lunch,
you should do that.
Go do that, because you'll actually see the benefits of your mind thinking clearer when you're actually physically in a little better shape. So I mean, honestly, something simple as that, like just get up and walking for 20-30 minutes a day. Yeah. Maybe that could evolve into a run, or go to the gym, or play handball. And there's no shame in getting a therapist if you need one either. Just get it tuned up every now and then.
Yeah. I mean, speaking to this, I feel like in today's day and age, we've done a lot of work on being technically savvy as far as biomechanics, and being even technically savvy as far as mental programming. But a lot of these organizations that are raising our children are not being diligent with the soul work involved. You know what I mean? Empowering them to be able to speak up when it's necessary, when they feel like they've been not wronged, but whoever is raising them is not coming from that place of love.
Yeah. That reminds me of one of my favorite books, The Outliers.
Wow.
By Malcolm Gladwell, who's after
amazing.
Yeah, and one of Malcolm Gladwell's case studies in that book was
Jamaica.
Yeah. I didn't even know he was Jamaican.
I didn't either until you just told me that.
Yeah, he's half white, half Jamaican. Yeah.
Wow.
But big up y'all, man. It talks about but like you said, being one of the case studies, which is it kind of almost relates to class and economics. And he did a case study where he followed young children from affluent families going to the doctor, and how more apt the children from affluent families were to ask questions when the doctor would do something.
Wow.
Versus poor families who the kids would just not ask no questions. Yeah. So it's empowering to know why something is being done to your body, and it's within your right to ask. But a lot of us have just kind of given up or given away our innate right to question because of groupthink, because of the fact that it's something we just weren't taught to do. Right. But there's a certain class who it's kind of expected for them to do that. Yeah. So I think that's the difference. Wow. They're no better than us.
I love
that. So
we
shouldn't feel any kind of way if we have questions about what's going to be ultimately better for us.
And that kind of circles back to that whole notion of, like seeing yourself in the people that you're coaching, mentoring, parenting, and them being able to feel reflected in that same way. If you're asking these questions, it's a conversation then, instead of this unhealthy power dynamic where everything's a dictatorship and you really have no say over, like you said. Why are you telling me I have to do this with my body? Why do I not have a say in this?
Yeah, and we take for granted, or I think the status quo at this point does take for granted that the average populace isn't a certain level of intelligence to understand. And it's insulting, which is why I kind of try to stay away from pop culture and media, because just turn on the news and you're like, wait, what? How is this even possible? Really? So I think that lack of questioning is why things are the way they are today. Wow. But I think I'm a bit cynical when it comes to the power structure of this country. That's another conversation. But I will say that always be questioned and always be learning.
I love that.
And if something doesn't feel or look right, it probably isn't.
Right. I love that.
It doesn't matter where it's coming from.
I love that. Well, this has been another mental health check-in with Prescription for Life. Live, survive, thrive. I see you. Enough love, Zoya Yaseka. Thank you.
My pleasure.
That was great.